Before we get into this one, just want to wish Phil Danault all the best and thank you for all the great years of hockey. It cannot be understated how important of a piece he has been to this team for many years now as a first line center, taking all those tough matchups, but not just his defensive role. His role as a leader these last couple years has great as well. It's been awesome to see him flourish and develop as a player in Montreal. Always been a big fan, and I'll cherish the Cup final run. What he did was just incredible. Hate to lose him for nothing, but wish him well in LA, and I hope he mentors their kids down the middle as well as he did ours. Cheers, Phil. So it's official. Phil Danault is no longer a Montreal Canadien. Sad day, hate to see him leave, especially for absolutely nothing in return, considering what we could have gotten for him on the trade market at the deadline last season. However, that trip to the Stanley Cup final was well worth it. Well worth it. I've always been a big supporter of Phil Danault, seeing his talent early on and the potential that he had when Marc Bergevin acquired him for peanuts. Quite a few years back, he developed very strongly in Montreal into one of the best two-way centers in the NHL and definitely one of the best defensive centers in the NHL. So he signs with LA, 6 years, $5.5 million. That is a hefty contract. Now, if the Habs would have signed him to that, I wouldn't have been completely disappointed in the slightest, especially if the trade clauses were light and it would have allowed us to maybe trade him in the future and he could have still filled that gap until Suzuki and specifically Kotkaniemi are truly ready for big roles in the NHL. I was kind of hoping that would be the plan. I didn't think, signing Phil to a big contract would have hurt the Habs any. But so it's hard. It sucks to see him go, but you know what? I think he'll only be missed in the short term. We have some really strong young centers in our pipeline, and I know that Phil had a very crucial role for us the last few years, and especially in the playoffs, the way he was able to shut down Matthews, Marner, Kyle Connor, Pacioretty, Stone. The list goes on and on. What he did on the penalty kill with his active stick, breaking up passes, his positioning was something special, and he's finally starting to get that recognition as one of the best defensive centers in the league, thanks to some quotes from Nathan MacKinnon. So you know what? I'm happy for Phil that he cashed in. He's apparently going to get a big role in LA. But there was some kind of weird comments he made that, he signed with LA because they really believed in him and whatnot. He was disappointed that Montreal didn't, restart extension talks once the playoffs ended, because we did offer him essentially a very similar, almost exact same deal. He gets a little bit more term with LA, a little bit more money, but I thought what Montreal offered him before this season started, back in the last offseason was more than fair, and I would have liked to see him accept it. Apparently there was no signing bonuses in it, or no, he didn't have the trade protection, which I think was probably the big thing that Montreal wasn't going to give him, because I think they see the talent in what Suzuki and Kotkaniemi are going to bring over the next few years. So I don't know. Weird comments from Phil Danault. Of course, he did go on to say he really appreciated his time in Montreal and was glad how it worked out. But he also mentioned that he didn't feel like he was put in a position to thrive offensively in Montreal, which I know, he had a lot of defensive zone starts, but for the last few years in Montreal, he was given our best wingers, our best offensive wingers in Thomas Tatar and Brendan Gallagher. He was also given anywhere between 17 minutes and 20 minutes a night. I thought he was... I don't know. I think his assignments were more than grateful. Montreal helped develop him into the center that he has become. They gave him, plenty of minutes to thrive. I know he didn't get a lot of power play time, but I think the concern there was it would, make him, take a dip in his defensive ability, and they needed him to be able to play once our power play was over and the opposition would send out their best forwards, and we needed him to shut them down. And when he did get power play time, though, he didn't really do a whole lot with it, So I don't know. I don't think I really agree that he was underutilized. I kind of think he is what he is offensively. Maybe he can add, 5 or 10 points to his total. But I mean, last season, I think he was only on pace for like 43 to 45 points. So I don't know. That's just me. I don't think this is a drastic loss for the Habs, especially long term. I think there maybe could be some growing pains down the middle for Montreal the next year or two, depending on Kotkaniemi and Jake Evans taking the next step. But, I'm very comfortable, especially with how strong Nick Suzuki played in the playoffs. And as well as the impact that KK had defensively, he did, put up some points here as well. 8 points in the playoffs for KK. But defensively, he was very strong as well. So I'm actually totally okay giving these young players opportunities to thrive. Jake Evans as well. He's looked really strong in his early NHL career as well. So, and I think these players understand the crucial role that Phil Danault is leaving behind. They saw how valuable he was in the playoffs. I don't think they'll take the loss of him for granted. And I think they know they have big shoes to fill. And you know what? I wouldn't even call these young centers, yes, they are very young. I wouldn't call them inexperienced anymore after that most recent run to the Cup final we just had. That's going to have a long-lasting impact on these guys' career. And I'm actually excited to see our top six with, if it stays this way, Nick Suzuki, number one center. He kind of was that in the playoffs anyway. Kotkaniemi getting a much bigger role as a potential 2C. And even if Kotkaniemi can only put up 45 points or so next season, that's a major success, and anything beyond that's a bonus. But moving forward, I think KK can elevate his offensive game to get into that 55, maybe 65, maybe even 70-point range. The kid is so young, and what he's done at such a young age at the NHL level is very, very impressive. And Jake Evans is a wild card. He's already 24 going on 25, but very, very strong defensive player, plays with grit, plays with attitude, and I think he's got some underrated offensive skill thanks to his skating ability and shot that we could uncover as well moving forward. And I can't forget Ryan Poehling. He had a fantastic year for Laval last season, 25 points in 28 games. I would suspect he'll probably get some more big minutes in Laval to start the season, but you never know. Through camp, he could surprise, or even maybe a call up during the season. It could be time for Poehling to really get his NHL career kicked off. That's exciting as well down the middle for Montreal. But Nick Suzuki is the key to all of this. The kid, the hockey IQ that he has on him, the awareness, and then just that elite skill to go with it. Nasty hands, the shot, the passing vision. His season last year, 41 points in 56 games, followed it up with what he did in the playoffs, 16 points in 22 games. This kid is special. That's why I think Bergevin played a little hardball with Danault, because I it's not that they would have wanted to lose him, but I think this team is comfortable with Phil Danault walking and going elsewhere. And I also find it interesting that Phil was worried about, the minutes that KK and Suzuki were going to take from him. I think that speaks to Phil seeing the talent in KK and Suzuki, but he goes to an LA team that has, Kopitar ahead of him in the depth chart. Then behind him, he has Quentin Byfield coming up, Alex Turcotte coming up. So he just signed a 6-year deal in LA. I'm not so sure, they can really provide him the offensive role that he's been looking for. You know what I mean? I'd almost think that he'll take the defensive responsibilities away from Kopitar a little bit and allow Kopitar to really get his offensive game back to where it has been in the past. That's my thought on that anyway. But you know what, guys? Let me know what you think about Phil Danault leaving this team. How much of an impact negatively do you think it'll be? How do you think our centers are going to handle their new roles moving forward? A lot to discuss here. Let me know down in the comments. Also, check out the rest of my videos from today on free agency. At Frenzy Day, breaking down the David Savard signing, the Mike Hoffman signing, as well as the depth signings of Cedric Paquette and Chris Weidman. And of course, if you're liking these videos, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Go Habs, go, baby! Woo!